Hi, so I am going to post my own discussion question to sort of give you guys an idea of what I'm looking for. Um, and I want to talk about a passage that really spoke to me and that drew me in, and it happens in Tablet 10, so the very last section of the story of Gilgamesh. On page 60, Gilgamesh, who has gone to the ends of the earth, approaches a tavern keeper named Siduri. She's a female tavern keeper, it says on 60, who lives at the end of the earth. This interesting personage is unknown outside the poem, nor is it clear who her clientele might be in such a remote spot. So that in and of itself, the fact that she is a woman, a merchant, and that she has a tavern at the end of the world where nobody lives, seems to just inherently carry some meaning with it. And the part that really struck me was that Gilgamesh says to her on 61, 6 days and 7 nights I wept for him. He's talking about Enkidu here. I would not give him up for burial until a worm fell out of his nose. I was frightened. I have grown afraid of death, so I roam the steppe. My friend's case weighs heavy upon me. A distant road I roam over the steppe. My friend Enkidu's case weighs heavy upon me. A distant road I roam over the steppe. How can I be silent? How can I hold my peace? My friend whom I loved is turned into clay. Enkidu, my friend who I loved, has turned into clay. Shall I too not lie down like him and never get up forever? And I think this spoke to me in part because I think when you reach a certain age in life, you shift from seeing death as this sort of looming abstraction that brings a certain meaning and urgency to life into a looming reality that, as you watch people in your personal life cross over into it, becomes more terrifying. And I feel like I've experienced this transformation to a certain degree myself. And this was really poignant to me, this idea of this king, this tyrant king who is just so brave and proud and ambitious in the face of grief with the death of his best friend, that he would hold his friend's body and he wouldn't even let them bury him, and that he would remain with the body until, like, literally the body was decomposing and being eaten by worms. And this idea, we know that Enkidu was formed from a glob of clay that molded into a man. And his return to clay, sort of like ashes to ashes, dust to dust, this whole idea of the cycle of returning, life in the cycle, returning back to the earth. And then the tavern keeper says to him, as for you, Gilgamesh, let your stomach be full. Always be happy, night and day. Make every day a delight, night and day. Play and dance. Your clothes should be clean. Your head should be washed. You should bathe in water. Look proudly on the little one holding your hand. Let your mate be always blissful in your loins. This, then, is the work of mankind. That ends on the top of page 62. And this, when I read this time, it struck me that there's a just direct line that can be drawn from this to the end of another work that comes in the Enlightenment, and this would be at the beginning of World Lit II, so after what we're studying, but called Candide by a French writer named Voltaire. And the whole message of that novel was that people, it was a question about how do we live in a world where horrible things happen, essentially, where we grieve. How do we live knowing that death is imminent? And the answer to that question is tend your garden, is the answer that Candide finds at the end of that book. And I feel like that's what this answer is, and that I wonder what you all think. So my discussion question is, do you think that the Epic of Gilgamesh is providing this tavern keeper's answer here as the answer to how do we live? And I don't think it's an easy question to answer, and here is my answer. I don't know, in a way, because like if Gilgamesh, like Candide, had begun the story already in a place where this was the answer for him, then he would not have traveled outward into the world. He would not have traveled to the end of the world, he would have not killed Humbaba. He would not have done any of these things, these quests that he goes on. So there would be no story, essentially. He would have just stayed at home and gotten married and